So, yeah, 2020 is finally over. I think this was the longest year ever. Not to say strangest in a very bizarre way, but I think I hear from everyone, and I say it as an observer, that it was also an interesting year. We all learned something about ourselves. My 2020 started with a visit to our local art store where I discovered a gel plate. And it looked like a fun process to learn. So I took it home and quickly learned how to print with my gel plate. Then I had this crazy idea that I should try image transfer my own laser printed photos with the gel plate. Crazy? Yes, pretty much. And since nobody else was doing it, I couldn't find any information on the process. So I had to come up with everything on my own. So I tried and tried, and it took a while, a lot of trial and error. But eventually I was able to transfer my own photos. In February, we had a last minute trip to Florida. It was different. I almost didn't go because I really didn't think I'm going to like Florida, but I did. And after 2 weeks, it was time to go back home. We were back in Los Angeles just in time for COVID-19 lockdown. I learned new terms like shelter in place, uncertain times, Zoom, and of course social distancing, which seems to be the most difficult one. All plans for the rest of the year are changed, and I'm not going to see my family in Israel this year. But while being locked in the art studio, I totally perfected my gel printing photos technique. And so I decided to put together an online class teaching this process. And here is how we celebrated Passover this year. By the end of May, my new class was ready to be beta tested and released shortly after. Hi, thank you for joining me and taking this class. And this is how we celebrated Mother's Day. In June, I began taking my YouTube channel more seriously and creating more videos. I was actually enjoying having my own channel and love making and editing my videos, which is definitely something I didn't expect. In June, I also discovered I can transfer and print my photos with my homemade gel plates. This was quite a surprise to me, but a very pleasant one. And before we knew it, summer was here. In July, I started the Creative Conversation podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Creative Conversation podcast, where we talk about our creative life and everything related to our artistic journey. And I also created my Facebook group, Be creative with images. By now, it has more than 1,000 members, which I think is pretty cool. And yeah, this is how we celebrated 4th of July. The local parks finally opened just in time for some summer fun. And we headed to the mountains for a few days without coronavirus related news. Meanwhile, in my studio, I was working on my journal, which was very much neglected for many years. Finally, I had time to get it done. September in California started with a massive heat wave. And then we had wildfires. And I discovered I can use my homemade gel plates just like stamps and create some fun and colorful large-size collages. I made a video tour inside my book, the Mixed Media Photography book. And soon after, my book sales went up. And in fact, it is still selling very well. So I think making a video tour of my book was a really good idea. In October, I also took a break from gel printing and went back to doing image solvent transfer. I always used it as a way to document my travels, but now I used it in a more artistic way. Due to high demand, I made a very basic gel printing photos video. In November, I also got my studio sorted and organized. I also framed some of the artwork and added to the walls. I also tried to get more comfortable on camera, which at first was not a big success. Yeah, thank you for joining me here in my studio. Thank you so much for joining me here in my studio in Los Angeles, California. This year, I knew I'm going to handmade my holiday gifts. Even if they suck, I think they mean so much more than store-bought junk. And I have to say, it was so much more fun to make these gifts rather than shop, which I don't like anyway at any year. So and finally, we celebrated Hanukkah and my birthday, socially distancing together. It was indeed a very strange year. But the main thing I discovered through it all is that for me, making art makes life so much better. And also, don't take anything for granted because nothing is. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next year.